Yeah, that's great.
All right, Rich, good to see you. Good to meet you. Thanks for being on the show. Would love to start off just like where in the world you are and who the hell you are.
All right, I'll try to do that shortly. Rich Comitz, I'm the Chief Operating Officer at American Corporate Partners. I am currently located in New York City at our headquarters. And about me, I was in the Army for 23 years. So
Okay.
after that, I transitioned into higher ed for a few years and came here about 3.5 years ago to be a senior leader in the company and try to help more veterans and military spouses.
Sweet. I was just on a call with someone yesterday in Los Angeles, and they're working on veteran affairs. And he was saying that in LA, the kind of collective concept of a veteran has shifted over the recent years to really think about people who are homeless or traumatized. And I was, I guess, surprised to hear that a little bit because in my mind, that's maybe what the story maybe used to be like post Vietnam. And I'm that's a setup. I'm just curious. You're in New York City, another obvious hub of culture in our country. What's the vibe of the perspective about veterans there?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's twofold in that there are a lot of people concerned about the extreme end, if you will, that you were talking about, kind
Yeah,
of in California, of helping those people that are homeless, maybe dependent on some sort of drug, or you also have people that are having mental issues. So whether it be PTS or anxiety or something like
sure.
that. And so there's a lot of people trying to figure those things out. Those are hard problems and they are the most extreme, right? That
Yeah,
the failure there is catastrophic. Whereas like with us, we're working on helping and I'd say that's a smaller segment, right?
yeah,
Thankfully, but it's impactful. We're working with the other segment, which are those that just want to provide for themselves and their family and have a good career and be a valuable member of society. So I think that in New York City, we definitely have people that are focused on the fringe things, as I mentioned,
yeah,
the more impact or immediate problems, if you will.
yeah.
But because we have so much industry here and so many different companies, they see the value of veterans and they're looking to find ways to get them integrated into their companies more and more. So that's a very positive
Yeah.
view that I think you know maybe 10, 15 years ago, the thought was like, we don't want to worry employ veterans because they come with too much baggage,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
And I don't think that's the case anymore.
Good.
As far as the thought process out there, I don't
Yeah.
know that was ever the major case of the of a veteran anyway. But I
Yeah.
think that the attitude has changed a little bit.
That's good. I'd really be curious about your transition, which sounds like a handful of years ago, 5, 10 years
Yeah,
ago.
so I retired in 2019.
Okay.
Um, yeah, so I spent 23 years in the Army, and towards the end of my career, I was teaching at West Point. So
Oh, cool.
um, I did not know what else I could do in the civilian world. So I figured, well, it's easier for me to, instead of really explore that unknown world, to try to go into higher ed.
Yeah.
So and I did enjoy what I was doing in higher ed. I wanted to be in kind of more administration in higher ed rather than just teaching,
Uh-huh.
which was what I was doing at West Point. But I'll tell you, I had a very hard time kind of convincing hiring managers, if you will, that what to think about my 23 years of military service.
Huh.
Even though I had, say, about 9 years worth of teaching experience
Yeah.
at the college level, that didn't equate to being a dean or a provost where they have 25 years of straight
Right.
academic experience. So um, I applied to a lot of jobs when I was getting out, and
Really.
there's a lot of people that I don't know if they're just doing it to be nice or they're like you should have no problem getting a job, or everybody should want lieutenant colonel with the PhD with 23 years of service,
Yeah.
and I felt like I applied to hundreds of jobs
Wow.
and wasn't getting many interviews, and was really kind of confused as to what I was doing wrong.
Yeah.
And that's the only thing. I mean, I have to look at myself, right? And I don't want to blame other people,
Yeah.
but I was not convincing them, the
Uh-huh.
hiring managers, that what I learned in the military would bring value to their organization. Now, I think I was trying to, but I don't know that either I didn't do it right or they just didn't want to. It is easy, right, when you're going through applications and you're looking for a certain stereotypical person
Sure.
with
Yeah.
certain experiences to when you come across one that's not in that same vein, you're like, I'm just going to put that aside because I don't want
Yeah.
to put too much mental energy in it. So I like to think that was kind of me as well, but
Yeah.
who knows? But I did make my way into higher ed, a little bit lower than I wanted
Okay.
to. But within a few months, I end up absorbing another person's job, right? Because I showed that I had the capability of doing that.
Yeah.
Um, and as I mentioned, it was 2019. So by
Yeah.
by February, March of 2020, we were in COVID,
Right.
and I was in a meeting with a lot of people about a big accreditation that we had going on, and we were talking about COVID and what we are going to do, and I said
Uh-huh.
someone really needs to pay attention to this like full time,
Uh-huh.
and they said, okay, Army guy, that'll be you.
Oh, really?
Uh,
Huh.
so so it actually was really beneficial or fortunate for me because I kind of had free reign to do whatever I needed to do to get the university back to the in-person
Oh,
offering
wow.
of classes. Because if you think about it, why would someone pay for an in-person experience when they're
Yeah.
being at home?
Yeah.
They might as well just go to a community college or whatever
Right.
else.
Right.
So um, so that was my task, and I did a lot of different things to make that happen. Through reorganizing spaces
Huh.
to vaccination and testing sites, working with the state and all that stuff, and all that seemed to we got to a point where we got back to having in person classes and dealing with the little outbreaks here and there, and
Yeah.
we seemed to do pretty well. At that point, the chief operating officer and the president kind of said, "All right, well, you're going to work for me now, like full time." So
Oh,
I
really?
didn't lose my other jobs, but
Okay.
I picked up the job of go do what we need to get done
Okay.
as
Like a
far as
like a fixer.
like wherever their problems were. Yeah, spending a little extra time figuring out what the problem is and on loosening it up and getting the project moving along. So worked on building renovations, worked on building buildings, space allocation,
Huh.
still working on accrediting new programs and things like that. So I was one of the few people that could speak academic language and operational language. So I
Okay.
was kind of that go between. I also worked in admissions for a while. I worked in HR for a while. So
Huh.
so yeah, I got a wide breadth of experience basically because I had the reputation of being able to get things done. So
What of that do you attribute to your unique personality? And what do you attribute to your experience in the Army that enabled you to be that kind of jack of all trades, throw me into the fire?
yeah, I mean, I think the my time in the military, even starting from West Point, right? That whole experience shaped my life in a way that I can't even fathom what it would be otherwise. Because the experiences of like something simple as discipline and time management that I learned at West Point, I'm not sure I would have learned elsewhere.
Yeah.
And then obviously I carried that into the Army. The
Yeah.
idea of having to get the mission done, it
Uh-huh.
was always, there wasn't like, no, we can't do this, right? In the military, you always had
Yeah.
to figure it out. And so you had to be resourceful, you had to be thinking through problem solving and all that stuff. You had to be collaborative. And so those things I learned in the military, um, and I think they served me really well in the civilian world and
Yeah.
in that role particularly. I work with people all the time, can build teams,
Yeah.
can look at things, problem solve, and just really. And I think the other thing is kind of being resilient and not getting flustered too much, right?
Yeah.
You waste a lot of time and effort getting frustrated and mad or whatever when you just like let's just figure it out. Let's move it on.
Yeah. As you were going back, as you were applying to all those jobs, and speaking of being flustered, can you remember a moment or multiple moments where you did get flustered with that?
Yeah, for sure. In that application process, I mean, you really go through a lot mentally, I think, when
Yeah.
like kind of the maybe I'm not good enough type of thing.
Oh yeah.
Maybe I'm applying for jobs uh, that are out of my league and things like so. I definitely had that time. Everybody's different, but I was hoping to like walk, finish, hang up my uniform on Friday and start Monday in a new job, and I
Yeah.
didn't. I had like about 2 months where I was unemployed, if you will, and that was really
Wow.
nerve wracking to me because, yeah, in concept, the idea of like sleep into whatever time you want, go work out, maybe
Yeah.
apply to a few jobs, whatever, spend time with the family.
Uh-huh.
That all sounds great, but like I was in the back of my mind always thinking like, what are we gonna do if I don't find a job?
Yeah.
And our lifestyle was of the point, and I have 4 kids, all that were in high school
Oh
area, and then
gosh.
I'm like, college is coming up, so
Yeah.
I couldn't just like say, well, I'll just put stickers on people in Walmart or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
I had to find a job and a substantial job that was
Yeah.
paying for our lifestyle.
Yeah. You're making me feel anxious right now. Stepping in your shoes.
Yeah, well, and listen. I don't think I'm unlike anyone else, right? I mean,
Right.
when you don't know that world, and you're not getting the good feedback. That's why
Yeah.
I like ACP so much, right? I'll go back to plugging us a little bit more
Yeah.
later,
Please.
but the idea of having a mentor that's kind of helping you walk through that journey
Uh-huh.
is so helpful because you're getting that feedback from someone that can give you that the reality check, but then also like give you ideas on where to
Yeah.
flex and where to move to.
Yeah.
And I didn't take advantage of that stuff as much as I should have, and so I felt like I was doing it kind of alone. And then oftentimes you don't get any feedback from you apply to a job and
Right.
you're like 2 months later, am I still being considered
Right.
or did
No
they
clue.
move
Yeah.
on? Like you don't know any of that, so
Crickets.
that was new to me as well, right? Like
Uh-huh.
I would have much rather got rejected than
Totally.
think that like, am I still in the hunt for this or not?
Yeah.
Um, so those type of things were all pretty anxiety driven. But like I said, I don't think I was different from
Yeah.
most people that are transitioning. I mean, there are people that are very fortunate that for whatever their background is or whatever their desire to move on to the next, they kind
Yeah.
of they do have that easy glide path. But I would say it's probably more like 90% of the people don't have that easy glide path, right?
Yeah.
So they have that those same emotions that I felt.
What do you feel like you did well during that?
Um, I mean, I think that I did well and expanding my my focus. I think I was a little narrow in the beginning. I
Mhm.
started expanding, and then also I did take to heart this kind of idea of like changing your resume or cover letter. Like, I'd say for the first few, I was like, I got a good resume, I got a good cover letter. I'm just going to basically change one or two things
Yeah.
and move on. And then I really started like reading the job description and
Hmm.
really trying to use
Yeah.
the same words and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So I did evolve to that. And then the other thing that I did good, but I wish I did even better is started the network
Oh,
talking
that's
to
cool.
people, whether it be on LinkedIn or going to areas in which one college I was hoping to work for, they had some sort of kind of I think it was more like a fundraiser event, but I went there and I talked to faculty members and all that stuff, just trying to
Hmm.
be able to have some people that might be able to talk for me later, or at least get some perspective.
Obviously, you had a bizarre experience in higher ed, at least civilian higher ed, with COVID and your role. What did you learn about either the industry or about yourself that then caused you to transition to something else?
Yeah, I mean, I think that what I learned about the industry. So my prior experience was teaching at West Point, right? And
Yeah.
West Point is kind of like utopian society when it comes to the academic situation. As an instructor or faculty member or someone on the staff, your job is to go in and educate, train, and inspire the next generation of officers, and
Yeah.
that's what you did. Whereas in the civilian world, there's that part of it is a lot smaller,
Huh.
uh, and
Yeah.
and finding ways to further your department, your university, fundraising, bringing more students in. Like I felt like it was more
Huh.
financially driven, which I should have known, but
Yeah.
I felt that a lot. Like
Yeah.
we were making decisions for money more than any other
Huh.
reason. Like not the betterment of the student. And I'm not trying to bash the organization I was
Yeah.
with, but
Yeah.
like
That's the reality.
that was what kept coming up to my mind is like,
Yeah.
and maybe if I was in charge, right, that we would have failed
Yeah.
because I would have been too utopian, right? Of like,
Right.
oh, whatever you need,
Right.
whatever. And so I could have been wrong in my thought process, but I kept seeing the idea that money was driving
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
And so that part was the part that was a little bit not shocking to me, but
Yeah.
more a reality check
Like
for me.
disenchanting kind of.
And so that, and then the amount of things I was doing, I was learning a lot, but then I was like, again, I don't want to say anything negative about the organization, but I felt like I was kind of getting taken advantage of
Yeah.
at some point of like, okay, taking one other person's job, that's fine. But now when
Right.
I'm doing 5 or 6 other people's jobs
Yeah.
that all were
I
getting
this
paid as
image.
much as I was, like, and not getting much of a salary bump for it, I was
Yes.
kind of like, maybe I can do this somewhere else.
I was getting this image when you were sharing that as you took over someone else's role. It's like Pac-Man. You swallowed something else up, but then something bigger than you came around and said, "No, I'm going to get you."
Well, yeah, it just keeps coming, and there's a lot of things that had to get done, and of course, because of my kind of can-do attitude and
Yeah.
mission and discipline, I'm like, I'm going to figure out how to make it happen. But
Yeah.
it was getting stressful because it was almost impossible to make everything happen
Yeah.
with the resources that I had, and I wanted to do better. So
I also picture I know this is, betraying my ignorance, but I imagine the student experience at West Point. I just imagine like rows of engaged students, like sitting there at attention, ready to listen and learn,
yeah,
which
yeah,
is not
no,
the experience in the typical classroom.
they really were amazing young Americans
Yeah.
that I was working with, and oftentimes the discussion before class and after class that was about the Army or just being an 18 or 21-year-old young individual and the
Uh-huh.
choices that they had ahead of them was just as rewarding to me than teaching the chemistry. So
Yeah. Yeah.
that part was pretty amazing, and I did also teach at night at a local college, and you're right, the experience was I felt different. Now when COVID happened, it got even really bad,
Yeah.
but I did feel like people were kind of just wanted to come check the block, and though I always would say, and this is again kind of utopian thought, is like I wish that I didn't have to test people right in
Yeah.
college. I wish
Yeah.
they just came, wanted to learn the subject, took
Right.
advantage of the fact that I knew the subject, and we had a conversation, and we can leave, right, and
Yeah.
that's it. But instead, you have to have tests and quizzes and all that
Yeah.
stuff, and then the students take the shortcut of like, what do I need to
Yep.
know to
Yep.
pass the test or quiz?
Yep.
And then like now you're not learning the material, you're just trying to find the shortcuts. And I just saw that happening a lot more
Yeah.
because people were just trying to like, this is just another class I need to check the block on, so let's just figure out how to get through it.
What then led you to leave higher ed? Was it like a sense of, hey, I got to move on from here? Or was there like an invitation into ACP?
Yeah, no, I got lucky in that I just started casually looking because of the situation that I felt myself
Hmm.
in. And I was like, after I felt that in my mind, the reason why I wasn't getting those jobs that I thought I should have gotten was
Hmm.
because I didn't have the civilian college experience. And then I was like, okay, now I have two or so years, about 2 years of
Yeah.
college level experience, and I can say that I did a lot of things on my resume in a civilian college. So I thought that I would be seen more valuable
Hmm.
by other universities or something like that.
Yeah.
Now, again, I expanded my search a little bit to other opportunities, and that's where I came across ACP. So I just got lucky, came
Hmm.
across ACP, when I read the kind of the job description, I was pretty excited about the opportunity, and just went through the process, and it just turned out they were kind of looking for someone that like me, right? Someone that knew the military community, that kind of been through that transition,
Yeah.
and so it worked out.
There are so many veteran service organizations, like thousands, but I can't think of one besides ACP that doesn't have something in its name to indicate that it's serving military, serving veterans. So I'm saying that again as a dummy. Like, tell me about American Corporate Partners.
Yeah, so it is interesting that this one thing we like to use ACP now too, more so because
Okay.
we're more than just corporate as far as So
What's in a name?
so the name, it's started many years ago, and it's too late to change it now, I guess.
Yeah.
So bottom line is, what we're doing is providing. So we work with a lot of corporate partners, but we also have about 65% of our mentors come from corporate partners, and then the other 35% are not corporate. So they could be academics, doctors, lawyers,
Yeah.
real estate agents, federal servants, any of those.
Yeah.
And so the goal for us is to have a big pool of mentors, so that when someone comes to us and says, I'm looking to get into this field or industry, we have a mentor that can talk to them about that. So what we do at ACP is we pair transitioning service members, veterans, and military spouses with mentors to help them get ready for their next career. Right.
Awesome.
So that's the perfect scenario. You want to learn about IT? Why not learn about what it's like to be in the IT world from someone in IBM, or actually doing it in some other company, and they could talk about, hey, this is what you learned in the military, and that sounds like this in the civilian world, and help you translate those skills, and where you should emphasize, where you maybe de-emphasize what you did in the military, and how to translate that, and then just going through that process, looking at job descriptions, looking at job titles, looking at organizations. Because I'll tell you, when I left the military, I was pretty ignorant to the outside world. If you asked me if I wanted to work for Campbell's Soup, I would say, well, no, I don't want to put soup in cans, right? But I now know a company like Campbell's, like many other companies, has logistics and project managers and finance and marketing and HR, right? I mean, almost anything you can say you want to do, they have, right? And that's the same for a lot of corporations. And so I would have turned away or not applied to jobs solely because I didn't know what they did or how I would fit into that picture, right? Or that building that's down the road, who's in that building and what they do, right? You could be like, I want to live in this city, and not even know that whatever company has a huge presence there, and you can work for them in some capacity.
What's your particular? I mean, this kind of sounds like a corny question. What's your passion in the midst of this work? What do you enjoy the most? Like, what's your thing in the midst of
I just love helping people, right? I mean, connecting people, getting people to move forward. We get to hear good news stories all the time from people where they're like, my mentor, helped me get a job, or, I was going down the wrong road. I got involved with you guys, and now I'm on the right track to finding a good job and all that stuff. So hearing those good news stories, finding ways to help more people, I think that's one of those things that, you don't have to sell anything in that way, right? I don't have a problem fundraising for us, because all I'm doing is telling people, this is the amazing work we're doing. If you want to help us, you should. If you don't, then move on. But in the grand scheme of things, that's the way, I feel like helping more people, seeing people being successful is what I think we all should be doing in some capacity.
Yeah. Well, kind of in wrapping up, if you could go back to 2019, maybe 2018, Rich, and have a conversation about, that Rich had no clue what the next 6-7 years was going to be like. What advice would you give, and what would you maybe encourage that part of you back then?
Yeah, and I do this a lot with current people, right? But I definitely would have benefited before. One, I would have started earlier,
Okay.
doing my research and what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
Um, Two, I would have used um, more organizations like ACP. There's a lot of them out there that are
Yeah.
really good, but to help me do things like discover what I want to do, what else I could do,
Yeah.
what other jobs I might want to do. And then also the other thing that I wish I would have done more of is networking.
Yeah.
And I think networking not necessarily just to help me get a job, but to help me understand the landscape I was
Mm,
about to get into.
yeah. Yeah.
So
And it's
those are
such
the
a obviously it's such a daunting thing that comes with a lot of emotion for some people, even kind of philosophical issues with being someone that's needy or I don't know, just not feeling comfortable doing that. I think
yeah,
again back to the point of organizations like ACP, like the structure that can help somebody get over or get past or get through their I don't know, the discomfort from doing networking. It's not sleazy, it's not weird. It's like normal in that world.
yeah.
And so to start that early obviously makes sense. And to come in with the posture as well of like not just learning and listening, but how can I help you? Like that reciprocal, I'm really here to help if I can. I think that goes a long way for sure.
Yeah, and that's where I'm happy to be in that position now, where when I talk to people, that's the last thing I usually end with is like, if I can ever be of any of assistance,
Yeah.
don't hesitate to reach out to me.
Yeah. Well, Rich, thanks for jumping on this. It's good to get to know you, and we'll make sure in the show notes to connect to ACP. And probably is LinkedIn the easiest way to connect
Yeah,
with you?
yeah, that's great. Yeah, LinkedIn to get in touch with me. But yeah, for sure, we could always use more mentors. Or if it's a
Awesome.
veteran out there that or a military spouse that would like to get a mentor, it's free. So we definitely
Sweet.
can use more mentors and get the word out about who we are and what we're doing, so we can help more people.
That's awesome. Thanks, Rich.
Thanks again.